Welcome to Anti-Fiction. This is a weekly nonfiction podcast where each week I, Christian Yates, select a topic, and then I force two guest hosts to come and talk about that topic.
I'm tied to a chair.
My guest hosts this week are Andy Mattingly.
Hello.
And Patrick Taylor.
I'm still tied to a chair.
Our topic is heists. So we did
Part
a
two.
heist. We did a heist episode like a couple months ago, and I liked it. So we're gonna do another one. Yeah, you were there. Yeah, and you were there, and you were there.
I was not tied to a chair though.
Not at that time. No. I let you lose that time. So before we get started, I want to point out. So we are going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus after this episode. Temporary. It's just temporary, and it's good news because the hiatus is so that way I can work on my comic, which
Shameless plug.
Yeah, well, I want the wonderful listeners of Anti-Fiction to know about it. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be back probably in a couple of months, and I will give you the details on where you can find Salamander Private Eye, which is the name of it. So. Anyway, so our topic today is heists. And I picked a weird one. So this took place September 23rd, 2009, and is apparently, according to a Swedish newspaper that I can't pronounce the name of, this is the first robbery involving a helicopter in Swedish history.
That's so very specific.
I know, right? Yeah, it's not the first robbery, and it's not the first time somebody used a helicopter, but it's the first time, right? But it is the first time that somebody blended all three of those things together into one
Swedish
great thing.
Helicopter bank robbery.
Yes.
You had me at Swedish.
So, on the morning of September 23rd, 2009, a Bell 206 helicopter was stolen from a helicopter base in Norrtälje, which is, so this is all in and around Stockholm, Sweden.
Okay.
But not the famous Stockholm bank robbery. It's not that one.
Oh, the other one.
That's the one everybody will know. But anywho, so they stole a helicopter, and at 5:15 in the morning, that helicopter landed on the roof of the G4S Cash Services building, and 3 or 4 people. I actually saw the footage of it in progress, which somebody had set to some like Swedish version of Benny Hill music or something.
Yes.
Yeah, you can find that on YouTube. It's actually very entertaining to watch. They landed the helicopter on the roof, and then 3 or 4 guys jump out of it and start slamming on the glass dome ceiling with sledgehammers in order to break it. Like, it's reinforced safety glass, and they like hauled fucking ladders that I have no idea how they put inside the helicopter with them.
Probably really carefully.
Right. They pulled the ladders out, smashed the glass with sledgehammers, and then lowered themselves down inside. At the time, there were 21 people working in the building. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Dun, 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 counting some money.
How long did it take them to smash through the glass?
Well, like 4 minutes,
Like
I think.
That's a long time.
Just sitting there, smack.
And then, like,
recording
imagine,
this whole stack
imagine
now.
being in there and, like, just looking up and being like, what the fuck is, oh my God.
Really nervous
according
guy
to
stacking things.
one
Smash.
source
Oh, God.
here.
Everything's everywhere. I recount all of this.
So yeah, it was about 4 minutes. So at 5:15 in the morning, the helicopter landed on the roof, and police received a call about the robbery in progress at 5:19.
Yeah. I mean, also, imagine being at work and a helicopter lands on your roof.
Yes.
Oh, it's just the CEO of the company. Cool. Wait, what's he doing with the sledgehammer?
So they also let off explosives inside the building.
Oh, great.
They had, before landing on the roof, they had placed caltrops at the entrance. So they're like those giant metal spikes in order to prevent anybody getting in or out.
Oh, geez.
Right, in a vehicle, at any rate.
Oh,
so, yeah. So the helicopter lands on the roof.
Did they drop those from the helicopter?
They did not. They planted those prior and then got in the helicopter.
So
and then
can you imagine, like, working? Because there were 21, like, going into work and being like, what the fuck are these giant things in front of the building today?
Right, like, I don't understand.
Or there's a guy trying to get in, like,
block it off for.
Should I go back around? What are these? Why are these in front of the door?
You know, they must be painting the parking spaces. That must, They just don't want people
inside the building.
Yeah. So the robbers entered the building through the roof and started bagging up money inside. So from the footage that I saw, it looked like they were both using like small controlled explosives and also like high power saws in order to get through like the gates and stuff that were holding the money, like breaking in and getting the money out of that. So at 5:25, 10 minutes after the helicopter has landed on the roof, the first police patrol arrives on the scene. But they had gotten reports that there were submachine guns being used, so they were told not to enter the building. They were supposed to wait for the National Task Force.
It's like the Army, I think.
Right. I guess it's like it's I guess specialized police force specifically for I guess large scale
like our
robbery
SWAT,
like this,
basically.
right? Yeah, like SWAT. So they blow the security doors open and start loading up the money, and it's important to note, of the 21 people who were in the building, none of them were physically harmed.
Well, that's good
at
to
all.
know.
Like, apparently they were just in a different part of the building. They didn't. Yeah.
So they weren't even looking up at the glass. They were just like people like in the basement,
like in the
like,
offices or something. Like somebody hear
small-
glass breaking.
Maybe hear small explosions now.
5:35.
Is it supposed to storm very locally above us?
Actually, you know what? It was probably
Fuck this spot in
they
particular.
were having a party down
There
in the
it is.
basement, and they've got Swedish house music. Just
Yeah, there you go.
and they would time the explosions with the the
Right.
bass, and they'd be
Yeah.
like, "Yeah!"
Oh
every
man,
time it'd go
bass
off.
drop.
Hell yeah.
At 5:35, the robbers and all of the money were back on board the chopper. 20 minutes in and out. Police
That's
are
really
surrounding
long.
the building.
That's really
Yeah.
a long time for a bank heist.
It is. Police are all around the building, and they cannot go in because they're still waiting on the National Task Force.
Do they see the helicopter on the building at this point?
Who, the police?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They know that they're up there, right?
Are they getting another flying object to follow the helicopter when it leaves?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Right? So, the helicopter takes off, and after the helicopter takes off, that's finally when the National Task Force gets there and enters the building.
Jeez.
Yeah.
They did not have a good response time.
They tried to scramble a police helicopter, which was stationed nearby, but at 5:49 a.m., the pilots reported that they could not lift off because of a suspected bomb being found in the helicopter hangar.
Oh.
They had planted, it's not even a real bomb. They had planted false bombs elsewhere in order to delay police response.
Wow.
Yeah. So, the police were able to confirm at 7 a.m. that none of the staff were hurt in the attack, and they found more explosives a little while after that. But yeah, so they had placed the caltrops to get stop people going in vehicles, placed false bombs, and they're just gone now. The helicopter that they used was found at 8:15 in the morning, 30 kilometers outside of Stockholm. And there were Swedish Air Force conducting a drill not far from here, that they offered assistance to like go find them, and the police fucking turned it down.
Why?
Because the robbery was a civilian matter and not a military one.
What?
Yeah. So the military is like, do you need help, bro? And they're like, fuck you, we don't need your help.
No, No, they're Swedish. They're kind. They're like, no, man, we don't want to take taxpayer money to
no, thank
military
you.
thing. You do military things. We do civilian things.
So the police put out a 7 million krona reward for anybody who was.
7 million krona.
That is an excellent question. So anybody who had information, the reward was 7 million krona, which is about $780,000 US.
Okay, $700,000. I could do a lot with that.
Right.
You have my attention.
But apparently the tip line did not yield any results. They did end up combing through the Stockholm criminal underground and arrested 2 people who they suspected might have had information about the heist. But I guess according to Swedish law, unless you are actually charged with a crime, your name is not released to the public. So those 2 men that they arrested, their name is not released to the public. Which, side note, is a fucking great policy. Isn't it? Think about how many times somebody has been falsely accused of a crime before, an investigation has been concluded or anything like that, and they've ruined the life of an innocent person. That's a fucking,
that's a really liberal thing that we should probably try and bring up in U.S. politics. But, we don't have a government
Listen,
right now,
it might work in Sweden, but it would never work here. That's what they always say, right?
That is true.
Oh, yeah,
That's exactly what they
Sweden's
say.
way
But anyway,
smaller. It would never work.
I got us off track. I apologize.
Yeah. So they were, 10 days, I think, after. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 2 days after the robbery. That's when they finally were able to track the rest of these guys down. They arrested 7 men who were the helicopter pilot, one of the robbers, 3 of the organizers, and 2 people that had provided false alibis, all of whom were arrested and convicted, received jail time. But the police suspected that another 10 may have been involved. They apparently did receive, a month prior, information that this robbery was going to happen. The National Task Force had gotten information
that this was going to happen.
That this was going to happen. And apparently, the National Task Force had been conducting surveillance at the wrong depot. And that's the reason that these guys ever were able to succeed at all.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's the Vastberga helicopter robbery.
Wow.
So
unsuccessful.
Yes, unsuccessful. But if you're interested in learning more about that, Netflix has for the last 2 years been planning a film version of it starring Jake Gyllenhaal. So I don't know if that'll ever get made, but at least the last report that I saw, I think from it was from October of 2016. So they might not be still planning that or not, but But anyway, that's my story. Andy, I understand that you have also prepared a story.
What was I supposed to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about D.B. Cooper.
Nice.
Which is obviously a fake name for a guy
I'm pretty
who,
sure I brought up D.B. Cooper in the last one.
No, that was in we had to re-record that episode. You didn't actually end up talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
In the
Please
final,
tell me all about
canonically,
D.B. Cooper, because I think it's one of the greatest things I've ever read.
Yeah, D.B. Cooper's a great story.
I had never heard of it, so
I didn't either until I looked into
bank
heist, and I was like, "What the fuck is D.B. Cooper?" Okay, this is what
the DB stands for douchebag.
Well, so fun fact about that: that's not even the fake name he used.
Yeah.
It just got miscommunicated throughout all the news outlets. He actually used Dan Cooper.
Yep.
But somehow they
called him DB.
Yeah. And it just stuck because that's what they were using.
Because all media outlets, they can push a story if they want to.
Right. DB Cooper is pretty catchy.
It is. So the man is actually still unidentified. But he hijacked an aircraft in the air over Washington State in 1971 at the end of November. November 24th, actually. And then, so he purchased his ticket one way in cash for a 30-minute flight, which just like screams suspicious, right?
Right.
No,
Under
1971.
Dan Cooper. What?
No, 1971.
Right. Yeah. Now.
Right, this was
Right. Yeah. In
before,
19.
yeah.
Well, yeah. When I get to some of the details, you're gonna be like, yeah, some of them are just funny.
Now
Because
TSA
now
would
that
be
would
on you
never-
like a cheap
Yeah.
suit.
That comes into play later too. The cheap suit, not the TSA. But yeah, so he I don't remember writing this. I started this off with he apparently was the epitome of cool.
I mean, he was though.
He
like,
was. So he
was very
gets onto the
cool, calm.
into the aircraft and lights a cigarette and orders a bourbon and soda. And then he's like there's like some discrepancies about where he was sitting, but definitely in the back. But which seat is sort of I was gonna say up in the air, but a little on the nose. So he was described as between 5'10" and 6 foot and in his mid-40s. He was wearing a black raincoat, a dark suit, a white collared shirt, and a black clip-on tie with a mother of pearl tie pin. So he was just very calmly sat in the back until the plane took flight, and then he handed a note to a flight attendant who assumed that it was his phone number, and so she dropped it into her purse without reading it. And then he leans over to her and says, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." So the exact wording of the note is unknown because...
I like that she was just so confident with herself that
Oh,
she
yeah.
assumed that this gentleman was just handing her...
I mean, that probably, I was going to say that probably happened to her a lot.
Right, well, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to bump uglies in the bathroom? Check
Right.
yes or no.
Yeah. That probably happened to her a lot. So he says that to her. Okay, yeah. So exactly what the note said is unknown because he actually ended up taking the note back from her later. But then he tells her to sit down next to him. So she sits down and asks to see the bomb. And so, which I think is so bold. That's probably would not have been my first question. So he opens his briefcase that he's got with him. And she sees what she assumes is a bomb, and what I assume probably was, if not a bomb, then a very good fake bomb. But it was the 8 red cylinders with a cylindrical battery. So he like opens it enough to let her like glimpse inside and then shuts it. And then he tells her what his demands are, which is $200,000, which I had looked up and then immediately forgot how much that is today.
I don't even remember. Now that
It was
It's
so
a
much
lot.
money.
No, I'm just trying. The DB Cooper thing is throwing me. I'm like, what heist did I talk about on the first one?
Collar bomb.
Oh, I did talk about the collar
Yeah.
bomb. Yep. Sorry.
I can look it up here at the end. I have the website still pulled up. But anyway, so $200,000, 4 parachutes, and then a fuel truck standing by in Seattle when they're supposed to land, where they're supposed to land, to refuel the aircraft. So she conveys his request to the pilots, and then they contact air traffic control, who then informs the local and federal authorities. So the other passengers were told that the flight landing was going to be delayed because of minor mechanical difficulty. But in reality, they circled the air for a long time, waiting for the authorities to come up with all of the demands. His ransom was authorized right away, and they were told to fully cooperate with him. So it was 2 hours that the plane circled, waiting for the police and FBI to assemble everything. So one flight attendant said about him, this is an exact quote, "He wasn't nervous. He seemed rather nice. He was never cruel or nasty. He was thoughtful and calm all the time." So during the period of time that they were circling, he ordered another bourbon and then paid his drink tab and tried to give his change to the first flight attendant that he gave the note to. I mean, she didn't take it. She didn't take the tip, which is crazy. I wouldn't take it. But no, yeah. So he tried to give her the change.
That might
but
be
then
the
she
last
didn't.
tip she
And
ever
then
gets.
and then he offered to
There's a dick
add
joke
to
there.
his
Sorry.
and then he offered to add to his demands meals for the whole flight crew once they landed. So he's a pretty chill dude. They did request like a face-to-face conversation with him.
Money wise, I found out how much it is.
How much is it? I can't read it.
$1,230,614.44. Now this is based on last year because this year we just started.
It's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, that's a pretty
It's over
penny.
$1 million.
Yeah. Yeah, so they didn't ask him to add that to his demands. But so while they were circling for 2 hours, though, he was just like very calm and polite. Didn't raise any suspicions, wasn't loud. And like one of the articles I read, it mentioned that at the time, people who did things like hijack planes were considered like usually politically motivated.
Okay.
Were kind of like loud and brash and trying to like scare the public into submission. But he, the passengers like later on gave a description of him, but at the time didn't know that he was the reason for the delay. So then he gives. So then they at around 5 p.m. the plane lands because the demands were ready to be delivered. So once so somebody who worked for the airport had the money and the parachutes like delivered to the airplane, and so once they were delivered, then the passengers and 2 of the flight attendants were allowed to leave. So the rest of the flight crew and 1 flight attendant stayed on the plane. So then they had to refuel the aircraft. And while they were doing that, he gave the pilots very specific instructions for getting to Mexico City. So I didn't include it in what I was writing because I didn't know what any of it meant. It was all about like altitude and speed and the wings. Like he knew what he was talking about, and he told them exactly how to do it. So then they told him that they would actually have to stop once more to refuel on the way there. They
Damn
wouldn't
it!
make
I
it all
knew
the
we
way.
should have gotten gas when I got the money.
He did. They're refueling right now. Yeah, but they would have to refuel once more to get all the way to Mexico City. So they agree on Reno. So it actually ends up taking 3 fuel trucks to refuel the plane, and there was like a little concern at that point because he does have a bomb. I mean, this whole time he's being very calm and polite, but he's got a bomb on him. And one of the fuel trucks was having issues like getting out there to refuel the plane, and so there was like some tense time where he was nervous, but ended up letting a different truck come out in its place, and it was fine. I mean, it was a legitimate problem, and nothing happened from that. So then they take off again. They were trailed by 5 planes, who followed them all the way to Reno. So they leave at 7:40. So 5 planes follow them all the way to Reno. When they arrive in Reno to refuel, he is no longer in the plane. So what he did was,
All right,
because he took those parachutes. So what he did was, they showed him how to open like part like in the back, because they know that he got those parachutes. They know he's gonna jump out. But I think the general assumption was that he was going to jump out over Mexico City.
right.
So when at one point, like once they get into flight, he puts everybody up in the cockpit, like even the flight attendant that's with them and the engineer, like they're all up in the cockpit. And so they can tell that he's opening stuff like in the back. And he says that once they get going, he's going to open that back door and lower the ladder and like hold on to that while they're in flight. Because they're going the slowest. He tells them to go the absolute slowest that they can go without,
without stalling.
Yeah, without stalling. And so he tells them that's what he's going to do. And so at one point when they realize that the pressure in the cabin is changing, over the intercom they ask him if he needs any help, and he tells them that he doesn't, and like that it's safer if they stay up there. And so they all stay in the cockpit, and then by the time they get back, he's jumped. So there's some like general theories about it, about like, because so the investigation was actually only called off like extremely recently.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
They've
like
stopped
2 years ago.
Yeah, like 2016.
Wow.
I don't remember what month, but they stopped looking for him then, because I think what seems to be the generally accepted theory is that he probably died in the jump because it wasn't like the right situations for somebody to parachute out of a plane. You know what I mean? Like skydiving or something.
Right.
Like that's not how they're. Yeah. So most likely he probably died. But even with those 5 planes trailing them, no one saw him jump or could even guess to where he would have landed, regardless.
It was, like super dark that night.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's.
Mhm.
let's speculate for a second. So he clearly knew about planes. Probably he had flown them before.
He's a really good reader.
Or just an avid reader, and he knew not practical but technical things about planes. So one of those two things. I would argue that probably it's more he had flown planes before. Maybe he was in the Air Force or something like that, and then so he knew he could make the jump. But if nobody saw him jump, then what if he didn't jump and the fucking plane lands in Reno and they're like, he's not in the back anymore? And then, like, while they're landed, he just fucking sneaks the fuck out. Like,
I don't think that would have been possible. That wouldn't have been possible because they didn't just peek into the back. I mean, they planned on getting him in Reno.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing, too, is didn't they find backpack evidence?
Yes.
Of, like, what could have been a shoot, so.
Yeah, because he actually left 2 parachutes behind. And then jumped with 2. So he definitely did jump, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so he jumped for sure. But a lot of people think he probably didn't make it. He probably died. But the problem with that is, like, his remains have never been found either. And then a few...
But they also don't know exactly where he could have landed.
Yeah, it would just been like... Well, they do have an idea based on the cabin pressure, like that time period. So that was all recorded. Okay. So they know when the door opened.
And then you
have like a window. Yeah.
And then so it could be anywhere here within this 100 miles or something.
Yeah.
But
and so they so they do have like a good idea of they know when, like, what time period he could have jumped in.
Okay.
And then a few years ago, the like efforts to find him were sort of like re-energized because a young boy found in that flight path like a stack of money, like a large stack of money that could have come from that man's $200,000.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they searched the whole area though and didn't find any remains or any more evidence that was even from him.
Huh.
Yep. So DB Cooper, if you're out there and you're listening, way to go. And also send me some money because,
congrats.
I'm still tied to this chair.
I like the stories where the they get away and then they live happily.
Is it exciting?
It is.
And
you know
I'm
what?
not
And
on
it's
his
sexy
side.
is what it is.
I'm not on his side, but just
right.
imagine if he lived.
Don't rob
and
things.
he got away.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
But if you do rob things,
get away with it.
Get away with it. Make it a good story.
Yeah.
Make somebody want to make a movie about it.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm not on his side, but whenever someone like does an outrageous crime, I just a nonviolent.
Have they made?
I just like want them to like get away with it. You know what I mean?
Have they made a DB Cooper movie? I mean, I'm sure that they have.
Maybe. I don't know.
But
no, I don't think they have.
Like, can you imagine a DB Cooper movie? But it's like George Clooney playing DB Cooper.
Oh
like,
yeah,
that's the level of like gravitas.
I think it would
I'm
just
imagining.
be no. He was kind of like a that was the other thing is so he like left some of his clothes behind, and so like that's how you knew he was wearing a clip-on tie. Like, so he was kind of cheesy and cheap. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like he wasn't.
Well, I wouldn't.
And he had that gross mustache.
I wouldn't say
it
I
could have
wouldn't
been a
have
false
George
mustache.
Clooney. I would probably have
Lemmy.
What? Lemmy from the
Lemmy Show. The guy who does that video that's like water.
Yeah.
Fresh water.
No,
that guy could do it.
Don't know.
But lead is heavier than feathers.
That one, that guy, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
He could do it. He can do. I've never seen him not do an amazing character.
Yeah.
He's got several characters. I think he could pull it off, and I think he kind of looks like that guy.
There you go.
You would just have to grow an outrageous mustache.
No, a fake mustache, because then at the end of the movie you could peel it off.
Oh yeah.
We'll say that he. Well, no, you could do exactly like in the story. You can have him peel them off, taking the things off, putting the backpacks on, and then cut to the cabin, the door opening, like the door light opening, and then tense moment, tense music, door light closing, and then you're like, shit. And then cut to, that's like the last like 5 minutes of the movie is that build up. And then you get to, they get to Reno and all the cops are there, and then they go through and he's not here. And then you're like, DB Cooper.
DB Cooper.
That's amazing. Well, so Patrick, what have you prepared for us?
So, my story, now that I know this is the last one, it's almost complete.
Temporarily.
This is the almost last one for this season. You could say it's the last one for this season.
Yeah, there you go.
Mine is how to commit a heist. Now, I want to put this disclaimer on it that I am not in any shape or form encouraging any heist activity. I am also not at all endorsing people committing heists. I'm just saying, in a hypothetical Grand Theft Auto 5 kind of way, I've learned how to do heists.
By playing Grand Theft Auto 5? I swear to God, if the FBI starts knocking on my door.
It wouldn't be your door. And I have like 3 different addresses, so they got to find me.
I know Mike's over here wearing an FBI t-shirt.
I fucking knew it.
Burt Macklin, FBI.
So anyway, Google.com defines the word heist as a robbery. So the first thing you have to do. So the first thing you have to do is if you're going to plan a heist at all, you have to figure out what you're going to be. Also, a verb for heist is steal. So you have to figure out what you're going to steal. In this case, we're going to use this show, Anti-Fiction.
I somehow knew that this was going to end with you
trying to steal your show.
Stealing my show. I don't
know
how.
The best part is I think I'm going to. I've been pretty successful up to this point. All right, so the first thing you got to do is you have to. Con. And first thing you have to do in any situation, especially like if you're trying to rob a store or whatever, you have to do your research. And the way I've done the research for the show is by being on the show and like learning the ins and outs of how like sound is being made and how like what equipment is being used. So then also too, I know what monetary value each of these microphones are, stands are, cables are, and the interface, not to mention the laptop. So anyway, step 2 is then you have to figure out exactly how you would do it. Kind of plan, figure out what you would do. So if I was going to steal this show, I would subtly put myself into almost every episode. And then talk to and develop a very good working relationship with the host.
I thought we were friends.
Patrick
removes his mustache.
Could I ask a question real quick?
I built you.
Go
How
for
long
it.
have you two been friends?
This is a very long con because we've been friends since like what 2012, 2011.
2013?
No, it was before that.
It was 2012. It was the end of 2012 is when we started doing A Few Good Men.
That is true.
So
the play.
I don't know why I decided to feel the need to put that there. But yeah.
Well, that's when we were doing the play, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We did A Few Good Men later.
And
I'm
then
funny, whatever.
So it's been like almost 7 years.
Right.
Probably about
the longest of all cons.
Probably like the end of this year will be 7 years because it was 6. It was 6 years in like October.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't give a crap about things. Anyway, so develop a working relationship with the person, and then God, this doesn't really work in the same situation as a heist would because like. You just wait for your opportune moment. That would be the next moment. And this would be the opportune moment. You're getting ready to stop doing the show for a hiatus, which would be a perfect chance for me to buy all of the equipment and set up fake dummies that I do voices for. And then I do your voice. And then therefore I would take over your show and steal it from you. Because then we'd put a hyphen in the title so people would know just a little bit.
Anti-hyphen.
Yeah. And we wouldn't have to have a podcast after it because I don't think the anti-hyphen fiction is anywhere. But yeah, that's how. And then you would just continuously putting out stuff. I would redo all of the same episodes, all of the topics again, and it would just assimilate. And then eventually, since yours is on hiatus, I'd continue putting things out, and people are like, "Oh, this is the actual anti-fiction." They never stopped.
Right? They lied when they said it was a hiatus.
Yeah, this is obviously some other thing that was created after anti-hyphen fiction. But yeah. But no, in a real heist situation, if we were talking about like you wanted to rob a jewelry store, you would obviously go to the store, you would quote pace the place, so you check out the security system, you check out the guards, you check out how long the response time is. You would check out their distributor and when they would be getting the jewels. It's all part of that first step of research. And then second is going to the place, simulate the working experience, if only just one time, so you can look at the cameras, you can look at the people working, you can learn everything. And then you pick the day that you're going to do it. You have your crew, which is part of the thing. See, Andy's been on this the whole time.
It's true.
God damn it.
Yep, we're going to
It's so
steal the show.
devious.
We've been stealing the shows. Like I said, assimilate and be on almost every
Yeah, between the two of
episode.
us.
That is true. Yeah, you've been on every episode between the two of you.
Yep. So, then you just do it. You execute your plan of whatever plan that is that you make. I wouldn't say whatever plan that would be. I'm just hypothetically talking about heists. And then you get away. You execute that plan, and in a flawless world, your plan succeeds, and you've successfully heisted whatever you wanted.
Right, and then they make a very successful film trilogy about you.
Yep, and they call it Seawater's Number.
Seawater.
That's the last name.
Yeah,
His name is Frank Seawater.
sure.
It's actually Frank and then Sea and then Water. Seawater's 72. Not even 77, because that sounds better, but 72. Because there were there's 72 different ways that his plan could fail. But the
Right.
or
But he
71.
only needed one
What are you-
way.
what are you
ways it would
referencing?
fail.
He only needed
Nothing.
one way to
Honestly.
make a light bulb.
Oh, you're
I'm
making this
just
up.
like on the fly.
Well, it's
a joke
it's
about
based on
Ocean's
Ocean's 11.
Oh,
but-
Ocean's 11. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
watch that. Never mind.
Well,
Sorry.
Ocean's 11 is a heist movie about George Clooney and Matt Damon and Brad Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
And they all
And also Bernie Mac
and Bernie Mac's there, R.I.P.
and Casey Affleck,
Casey Affleck's there.
Julia Roberts,
Julia Roberts is in it.
Andy Garcia.
Andy Garcia's in it. Who's the
Did you
contortionist?
direct this movie?
I did not direct this movie. No,
Who's the contortionist? He's a famous guy too.
he is. What the hell is his name? I don't remember. We'll look it up.
Um,
Mike's got it.
perfect. But yeah, it's all about them, and they're planning to. Well, George Clooney is planning to heist three casinos?
Three casinos in one.
Three
night.
casinos in one night. It's like Super Bowl Sunday or
Mhm.
something, and it's
something like that. I don't know.
it's
it's,
this
or
big-
it's a fight. It's a
yeah,
fight.
it's a big. It
boxing
wasn't a
match.
fight.
Boxing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a big boxing match, and everybody's going to be betting, and that's when the casino will have the most money inside of it, as opposed to a regular day of business where they don't have as much money
Kind of
coming
like
in.
in the first heist episode, I did the Stardust casino robbery in Las Vegas, and he waited until a very high-profile football game where all of the bets came in on Monday Night Football, and then they would have been paid on Tuesday. So at like really early in the morning on Tuesday,
He came in.
He came
took
in
it,
and took
walked
everything.
out. Walked
Yeah.
out. But yeah, that's and then so he assembles 10 other.
I can't believe
people.
we're doing the plot of Ocean's
Yeah,
11.
which is what I wanted to do the first time, because originally I was going to make a joke into all three Ocean's movies.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
So were we talking about the Grease Man?
yeah, the
yeah,
Grease
the
Man.
contortionist guy.
Those are literally the only 3 movies he's been in.
Oh.
Huh.
Well,
And not a famous actor. Those
no
are the
way,
only movies he's
he
been
was totally okay. Spoilers. He was totally in Ocean's 8.
Oh,
in. Oh, that's dope.
What?
So they are in the same universe. That's cool.
They were.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Wait, it's not the same person
Not the same person.
at
No.
all.
He must
Even
just
though-
be like
even-
like an
wait.
actual
I'll look up
contortionist.
Ocean's 8 and
Yeah,
see who's in
'cause-
that, but
He's supposed to be in the same movie. They're supposed to work together.
Huh.
Yeah, Ocean's 8 takes place.
That's cool. Maybe they'll do 8, 9, and 10. It's the prequel
Well,
trilogy.
But they aren't really prequels, because
Right.
the first shot is supposed to be like Danny Ocean's dead.
Yeah.
And she's like standing at his grave, and she's
Oh.
like, blah, blah, no,
That's sad.
unseen things, unsaid things, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's not dead, because it's fucking Danny Ocean.
Right.
It's George Clooney. He's figured something out.
do you know the name of the character?
It was probably Yen, I think is who it was. It's like the throwback. There's like 3 throwback characters in that movie. It's the old guy who unfortunately passed away right before the movie. And you can tell it's a different actor. But it was the guy who wanted to give the funding, the old guy.
Yeah.
in Ocean's
Okay.
11.
Yeah. Sal.
I think so. He has the big glasses, and they go to him, and they first.
Oh, the
approach him.
funding guy. No,
Yeah.
no. Okay, not Sal.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
Ruben.
Ruben. There it is.
If he's in this one, which I'm not saying he's not, he's just not credited.
I probably is
oh,
a.
he's not credited. That makes sense. Anyway, you guys
Well, yeah.
have to. I'm never gonna watch it. I don't care about this
You
movie.
should, honestly. It's
I will not.
like Ocean's 11 is good. It's a very good heist movie.
I believe you. I'm just.
You should
There are a
watch
lot
The
of good
Bank
movies
Job.
I'm not gonna watch.
That one is supposed to be pretty funny. It's, I believe, with Eddie Murphy. It is a bank heist movie too, and I think it's with
Tower Heist.
yeah, Tower Heist.
Yeah, with Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller and Eddie Murphy. Yep.
So that's how to heist.
Yep. Don't actually do it though.
And yeah, don't do it. And
Stealing
FBI,
is
if
a
you're
crime.
listening, this is
Stealing
all
is a-
for satire.
Stealing is a crime.
You
if you
wouldn't
steal
download
things-
a car.
You wouldn't print a gun.
Well,
Anyway.
all right. Okay.
No,
Sure.
I meant like you
How to
wouldn't
heist.
3D print a gun. Like that's illegal.
Is it?
Yeah.
Probably.
didn't know that.
Oh,
I would
yeah.
imagine.
There was a file. Now we're just getting right into say your outro, so we can just go right into pro so bullshit, so I can talk about.
All right.
this.
Well, hey, thanks for listening, everybody. So this is the last episode before our hiatus. So just follow us on the internet, and we'll let you know when we're back. We'll start putting more shit out after Salmander gets up and running. That'll definitely be this year. So, but it might be a couple months before we get back into anti-fiction. So keep an eye out, keep an ear out. Follow us on the internet
is
at
Patrick Taylor.
antifictioncast. You can also email us at antifictioncast@gmail.com, and
Signing off.
we'll see you when we see you.